214th contact. Tuesday, February 3, 1987, 2:39 p.m. Billy says be also greeted, my friend. And be welcome. May I ask you, at the outset of our conversation, to answer some questions? Quetzal says certainly. But later, I would like to discuss with you some concerns that are of a purely private nature. Billy says of course. Well then, since you concern yourself, among many other things, also with biblical history, respectively Hebrew history, and since you call rather large areas of knowledge your own in this respect, you can surely tell me what's up with the exodus from Egypt, in reference to the duration of the crossing of the desert. In the Bible, it is claimed that the great exodus wandering lasted for 40 years, until the entrance into the so-called Promised Land took place. Quetzal says this assertion of the Bible does not correspond to the truth because the time of the entire exodus up to the invasion and occupation of the Promised Land only lasted for 40 weeks. Billy says so 40 is true, but these weren't years but rather only weeks. At the same time, when I consider the distance from Egypt to Palestine, then the reality hits even sooner, because where would the Hebrews have wandered around in the desert for 40 years and on what would they have lived and satisfied their thirst? Moreover, the Mediterranean Sea was always on the left side from Egypt to Palestine, by which the refugees could orient themselves and along which they also moved, alternating in the nearer distance and then again in the further distance. Now, also regarding the death of Moses, statements are made that are not correct, as Semyaz once explained to me. What is the truth concerning this? Quetzal says Moses was murdered by Joshua and his accomplices. The reason for this was rather manifold. On the one hand, Joshua wanted to gain control over the Hebrews, which is why he later claimed that in this respect, Moses had determined this through God's command, for it was even God's will. And on the other hand, Moses became hated by many, as well as by the murderous accomplices, not in the least because of the fratricides of the unbelievers of God and of Moses, which were mercilessly committed against all those who were not of Moses' view and who did not believe his words and who contributed to strife through this. Billy says, so that was it. Well then, on my great journey, it was shown to me by Ptah, at a little more than 50 million light-years away from the Sol system, a galaxy in whose center an enormously gigantic explosion allowed everything to shake. I have told an engineer, Rees, about this, but I no longer remember the name of the galaxy. Quetzal says Semyaza told me about that. The name of the galaxy? We call it Globalung. Also on Earth, it will become well known among the people, but only around the turn of the millennium. However, it will already be well known to astronomers prior to this. Their designation for it will be NGC 4636. Translators note the following article was taken from chandra.harvard.edu web link. NGC 4636 hot galactic arms point to vicious cycle. Credit NASA/SAO/CXC/C. Jones et al. Chandra's image of the elliptical NGC 4636 shows spectacular symmetric arms, or arcs, of hot gas extending 25,000 light-years into a huge cloud of multi-million degree Celsius gas that envelopes the galaxy. At a temperature of 10 million degrees, the arms are 30% hotter than the surrounding gas cloud. The temperature jump, together with the symmetry and scale of the arms, indicate that the arms are the leading edge of a galaxy-sized shock wave that is racing outward from the center of the galaxy at 700 kilometers per second. An explosion with an energy equivalent to several 100,000 supernovas would be required to produce this effect. This eruption could be the latest episode in a feedback cycle of violence that keeps the galaxy in a state of turmoil. The cycle starts when a hot gas cloud that envelops the stars in the galaxy cools and falls inward toward a central, massive black hole. The feeding of the black hole by the infalling gas leads to an explosion that heats the hot gaseous envelope, which then cools over a period of several million years to begin the cycle. And you. Fast facts for NGC 4636 credit NASA/SAO/CXC/C. Jones et al. Scale images 5x4 arming across. Category normal galaxies and starburst galaxies. Coordinates J2000 RA12H 42 meters 50 deck plus 0241 single quote 17. Constellation Virgo. Observation dates January 26-27, 2000. Observation time 15 hours. Obs. IDS 323 color code intensity instrument precise distance estimate 50 million light years release date December 19, 2001. Billy says aha. To view this galaxy was, for me, something especially remarkable. Yet since we're already at it, if I remember correctly, Pata also explained to me that comet tails carry toxic substances with themselves, which are also essential ingredients for the formation of dwarf suns, from which larger stars can then develop. Quetzal says that is correct. The main toxic substance of this kind is hydrocyanic acid. Billy says hydrocyanic acid. Yes, I remember, Pata said hydrocyanic acid. This is, indeed, highly toxic to humans. Depending on the amount of hydrocyanic acid consumed, severe cramps, vomiting, shortness of breath, and then unconsciousness and death set in, namely as a result of respiratory paralysis. First aid can, in fact, only be rendered via fresh air resuscitation, and to be sure, only by a device, respectively by a suitable apparatus. Under no circumstances may mouth-to-mouth resuscitation be performed because through this, the helping person poisons himself through the rescue breathing and can even die, just because he, through the mouth-to-mouth breathing, inhales the poisonous breath of the poisoned person. Quetzal says that is correct. A poisoning by hydrocyanic acid or its salts, particularly potassium cyanide, through the gastrointestinal tract, through the lungs or the skin, causes a blockage of the inner cell respiration. With the iron atom of the respiratory enzymes, an iron cyanide complex is formed, which impairs the oxygen combining capacity and the oxygen intake into the cells so severely that these functions fail and expire completely. Billy says you are, among other things, also a doctor and must know this exactly. Quetzal says that is correct. Billy says I am still in outer space with my questions, and this time, with the asteroid Eros, which I was allowed to view during the great journey and which looks similar to a potato, with thousands of large boulders that are scattered about and that are covered in many places by blue dust or other blue material, whereby also many craters cover the surface of the space projectile. The largest crater, as Pata said, is about 7,500 meters wide, if I remember correctly. In addition, now the question that one asked me over and over again, it is to be read that this asteroid could collide with the Earth one day, which would mean a global catastrophe and the end of all life on Earth, since Eros still has a size of about 35 kilometers. What should be thought of this, also with regard to other asteroids that also often come into the vicinity of the Earth? Is the anxiety justified concerning such a catastrophe? Quetzal says in relation to the asteroid Eros, not in any way, unless upheavals in the Sol system would occur, through which a change could be brought about, as this would also be possible through influences that are foreign to the Sol system, such as by large comets or wandering planets like the destroyer, by which the asteroid could be thrown from its orbit and be directed towards the Earth, but this is extremely unlikely. The possibility that Eros could fall to the Earth in the foreseeable future is less than 3%. But on the other hand, there is a continuously ongoing possibility that impacts can occur on the Earth by other asteroids, but these do not exhibit as enormous proportions as Eros, yet they could still cause enormous catastrophes. However, these asteroids are small in size, namely from a few meters to a few kilometers. During the period leading up to the turn of the millennium, a number of such objects will arrive in the near vicinity of Earth, but without endangering the Earth directly, even if, at the same time, the distance mark of such an asteroid falls below the